We're taught to think of scarcity as what you don't have. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough opportunity. But what if that's not what scarcity really is? What if scarcity isn't a lack of resources at all, but a psychological trigger that completely changes how your mind works? In this explainer, we are going to map the hidden mechanism that lets scarcity control your decisions, often without you even realizing it's happening. So let's start with a really simple question we've all experienced. You see it everywhere. The limited time offer, the only 2 left in stock warning, that little clock ticking down on a checkout page. Why does something so simple so effectively hijack our rational brain? The answer reveals a powerful, invisible force at play. To really get this, we first need to isolate the signal that's triggering this whole response. It's not just a sales tactic. It's a fundamental cognitive switch. So let's look at what we believe versus what's actually going on inside our heads. On one hand, the common belief is that scarcity is an external problem, an empty bank account, a sold-out product. But the psychological reality is all internal. See, scarcity isn't really about what's missing out there. It's a cognitive switch that gets flipped inside your mind. And the moment it does, it changes the entire set of rules for how you think. Okay, so once that switch is flipped, a really predictable pattern of collapse begins. It's a process where our judgment systematically fails. Let's break down the observable signals of this pattern in action. The very first thing that scarcity does is it throws you into a state of tunnel vision. Your whole mental world just shrinks, focusing with an intensity that feels really productive, but is actually incredibly limiting. And this collapse of what we call cognitive bandwidth, that's the key. It isn't just about focusing more intently. It's about what you stop seeing. All the important things in your peripheral vision, long-term costs, other options, even the actual quality of the thing you're focused on, they just vanish from your awareness. Your brain stops evaluating and just prioritizes speed. So, as that tunnel vision really takes hold, a second signal starts to pop up. That feeling of urgency begins to dismantle your own principles, your own long-term standards. This is what you could call the just this once effect. Under the pressure of scarcity, that desire for immediate relief becomes way more powerful than your commitment to your own standards. You might find yourself agreeing to things you'd normally reject or making a choice that goes against your long-term goals, all just to escape the discomfort of that moment. Now, this third signal is maybe the most powerful of them all, because it's where restriction itself becomes a stand-in for worth. The very thing that makes something hard to get is what tricks us into believing it must be good. And this right here reveals the core of the manipulation. A product or an idea doesn't actually need to get better to become more desirable. Access just needs to be limited. The restriction itself manufactures a sense of value out of thin air, causing our desire to climb as the availability plummets. So we've seen the patterns on the outside, the tunnel vision, the compromised values, this idea of manufactured worth. These are all the external symptoms. Now let's look under the hood at the subconscious 4-step mechanism that's actually driving this whole process internally. The whole thing unfolds in 4 quick subconscious steps. It all starts with the simple perception of scarcity. That's the trigger. That immediately narrows your cognitive bandwidth, which creates the tunnel vision. And it's in this state that your brain makes a critical error. It misreads the feeling of urgency as a signal of actual importance. And with that, and the final step, your ability to make a reasoned choice just collapses. This really captures that crucial shift in how we evaluate things. Quality, merit, whether something aligns with your goals, all of that becomes secondary. The primary and often the only question becomes one of access. So when you understand this mechanism, you start to see a fundamental power imbalance. There is a very steep cost for being unaware of how this little switch operates inside of you. The person who is completely unaware of this psychological process isn't actually making a free choice. They believe they are, but really, they're just reacting to bait. They're following a script that has been triggered in their mind without their permission. And the costs are significant. You become predictable. And because of that, you become easily manipulated. You consistently compromise your own long-term values for a hit of short-term relief. And ultimately, you're not in control of your decisions anymore. Whoever manages access is. But there is a really powerful alternative. And the advantage isn't gained by trying to fight the mechanism head-on, but by making a simple perceptual shift.
See, the aware individual doesn't really need to resist. They don't need to fight it. They simply see the mechanism for what it is. They see the trap itself.
And by just seeing the trap, you can start to tell the difference between manufactured urgency and genuine importance. You can evaluate things based on their actual merit, not just how available they are. You learn to recognize that feeling of cognitive compression as a signal to slow down, not speed up. And through this awareness, you maintain your agency. You stay in control. This entire analysis isn't just an observation. It's a map. And a map is most useful when you use it to find your own position. So let's turn all of this inward with 3 final questions for you. First, where in your life, at work, in relationships, in your purchases, do you consistently feel rushed? That feeling is a huge signal. It's the flashing light that the scarcity switch is being activated. Second, when you are in that rushed state, what do you end up compromising? Which of your standards, which of your values, or long-term goals get pushed aside just for now? And finally, and this is probably the most important question of all, look at those situations where you feel rushed and you find yourself compromising, and ask yourself this: who controls access? Because whoever controls access, whether they're doing it on purpose or not, is controlling the switch.